Before we dive in, here's some real talk. If you're a leader, entrepreneur, or builder of anything, there's a whole stash of free tools waiting for you at papernapkinwisdom.com. We're talking mindset, strategy, clarity, no catch. Just ask. You can even hit the link in bio and grab what you need to move forward faster.
Welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom, where we share pearls of wisdom shared by some of the world's top entrepreneurs, leaders, and difference makers. Here's your host, Govind Jayaraman.
Hi, I'm Govind Jayaraman, and this is Paper Napkin Wisdom, episode 272. If you're new here, Paper Napkin Wisdom is where world-class entrepreneurs and difference makers pull back the curtain on simple ideas that drive extraordinary results, often scribbled on, yes, just a plain, ordinary napkin. Today, you'll meet Rainier Mallol, a Dominican-born engineer turned AI trailblazer whose work is saving lives and reshaping industries. Forbes 30 under 30, check. MIT Innovators Under 35, check. But titles only hint at the bigger story. How one bold choice propelled him from a classroom prototype to partnering with governments around the world. As you settle in, you might begin to wonder what single decision is quietly waiting to change everything for you. Rainier and I dive into the mindsets, unexpected pivots, and data-driven courage that led him to predict disease outbreaks months in advance, and why he's now pointing that same algorithmic firepower at customer experience problems. Along the way, you'll hear a piece of wisdom so crisp and memorable that once revealed, you may never look at your own crossroads the same way again. So, lean back, open your mind, and imagine what could happen when you say yes to the idea that's been whispering at the edges of your comfort zone. After the episode, pop into social and share your own reflections with the hashtag #PaperNapkinWisdom, because your insight today might be the spark someone else needs tomorrow. Let's listen in. Rainier Mallol, welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom. I'm excited to have you here with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here with so many people that have me before, and just glad to share a little bit about me and my experiences so far.
That's wonderful. Well, Rainier, for everybody listening, accomplished young man, MIT innovator, and other things, Harvard grad. So you shared a very interesting paper napkin with me, and you underscored a word 3 times because I suspect that it's pretty important. One decision can change your life, and you underscored the word one 3 times. Why did you share that with me?
So first of all, let me just speak about what I've been doing for the past 10 years. So first of all, I'm Dominican. I grew up in Ireland. I was educated here at my school, my university here as well. And I don't know, since I've been very young, since I have memory, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, or at least someone that actually a businessman. I really don't like the word entrepreneur, but I do like the way that running a business has. You innovate, you provide value, and you can also change people's lives through your work. So I think it's very noble. And when I graduated college, a year after, I got the opportunity to go to a program at NASA. At that moment, it was called Singularity University Graduate Students Program. And I remember that at that moment in time, I had an idea of how to build something that could actually impact the lives of millions of people. And that something was an AI model. This is back in 2015 when no one was talking about AI. But the AI model would be able to predict diseases before they happen. So imagine COVID, imagine the flu, imagine other diseases like dengue, which is a tropical disease found in countries like the Dominican Republic, Latin America, and Southeast Asia as well. And on the first day of class, I met someone who was a doctor, or who is a doctor, and we started talking. Started mingling, studying the idea of how it actually could be done. And we, decided, okay, let's play it out. Let's see what happens. The program lasted 10 weeks. And at the end of the 10th week, there was a competition about the group that could innovate with a technology that could impact most people's lives. And we won. And at that time, I had to make one choice. I had to, decide whether or not I would follow, this idea and see what it becomes, or just leave it at that and, and just return to my country and, see what I would do there. So of course, I did what anyone with, some kind of pause would do and ask around. And I asked people that were dear to me. And I think not a single one of them told me to do it. They always told me, okay, come back. It's too risky. It's true that you're young, but you know what's gonna happen. And basically, they shut the door. And I do respect it. It did came from love. It didn't came from a place that it was not, positive, but I didn't listen to them, and I, made the decision of actually following through and see what was going to happen. And thanks to the decision, not only did the dream become reality, we now have technologies that impact millions of people every year positively, improving their healthcare, identifying risks where risks could not be identified in such a way before, helping governments actually be better and more efficient. And now, I have 40 plus employees under me working in that team. I have the impact to show it, and I have the recognition as well. And it was thanks to that I got other accolades such as the Forbes 30 under 30, the MIT under 35 innovator, and also thanks to that I also got into Harvard as well. So it's just, to me, in hindsight, it's very funny. It's just one decision. You talk with other people. They may give you, pause or not. They may give you encouragement or not. But at the end of the day, it is you who has to make the decision, and it is you who controls your own destiny. And it's true that one decision may weigh more than others, but it still is one decision. So I think that's why I, underline it 3 times. It just takes just one decision to change who you are, who you become, and what would you do with your future.
There's a lot that you start off with, and I want to go back to where you began. And you said that you always wanted to be a businessman, and you didn't really like the word entrepreneur, right? Why? You said being a businessman it felt more noble than being an entrepreneur. Why are you making the distinction? And there's no right or wrong. I'm just curious as to why, what distinction exists between those two terms to you.
This conversation reminds me of when I was a kid, and I'm a millennial and a 90s kid, so I grew up watching 90s show like Animaniacs and whatnot. And I always remember seeing like the businessman being the bad guy. There's family this show called Rocket Power, which was about kids who would do surfing and roller skating and whatnot, and do extreme sports, and they would always see that lifestyle of having a business or being a businessman as the negative part. But I was always drawn to it. I was always saying, no, but I want that. I want to wear a suit as I am wearing now. I want to actually, grow and have my community grow with me. The distinction to me, it's very simple. It's that the entrepreneur is still a young businessman. It's a businessman that has not been validated by the market itself. The entrepreneur is trying. And of course, there is a point of the entrepreneur that I cannot deny, which is innovation. I'm still an entrepreneur. I don't think even with 10 years of experience, I'm still a businessman. I don't own a big corporation and I don't run a big corporation. Having said that, to me, it is the natural path of entrepreneur if they have success to become businessmen or businesswomen. So, for example, we used to think about social media as this big innovative thing, and of course, to some degree, they still are. But right now, they're full-fledged corporations. And Mark Zuckerberg, for example, is much more a businessman than an entrepreneur. Or even the folks at Google or the folks at Snapchat or other companies that right now are bigger than most corporations in the world. So to me, it's ideal to become the businessman. The entrepreneur is something that anyone can be as long as you have an idea. The businessman is someone that the market has vetted through and that has given the support, of course, through money and through growth.
I really I align with what you're saying, because you're sort of talking about what Gerber talked about, Michael Gerber in the E-Myth, that, there, and his theory is that most people who are entrepreneurs are practitioners. They're really good at doing something, and they've leveraged that into a hustle or a side hustle or a main hustle, and you take them out of the business, there is no business. Mm-hmm. And I think what you're doing is drawing the distinction between the solopreneur, the person who is trading their time and expertise in exchange for disproportionate value, to instead a business person who's built a community that they sustain through leadership, strategy, innovation, and insight, which is different. And I think that's the phase and stage of growth. You start somewhere and you move into a different state. You have to almost, I often say this, that you have to take on a schizophrenic personality, where when your business grows, you're part shareholder, part CEO, part chairperson of the board, right? I mean, those three roles have very different objectives and different perspectives on what's important to the company, and they almost are at odds with each other at times. Shareholder wants to maximize their personal returns. The chairperson of the board is looking at strategic insights that are 5 to 10 years out. The executive team is looking at making sure that they're retaining earnings to fund growth. They tend to be at odds with one another, don't they?
I agree, and especially now, I think it's a practice that we, I mean, at least I hope it phases out a little bit, or at least changes in the coming future, because what we're seeing now is a discontent from customers, and that's from one side, and on the other side, you have all of this culture of being a customer-centric company and whatnot. But that in itself, like being a customer-centric culture, one that puts the customer in front, is, as you said, it's counterintuitive to the stakeholder and to the shareholder, mindset, which is, okay, how can I maximize profits? Because sometimes in the long term, it may seem that you have to cut some costs here to maximize it in the future. At the end of the day, it's an Excel sheet. But what we have seen, and when I mean we, people that are focused on the customer experience, is that you can take sometimes the loss in the short term to have a win in the longer term. That is backed by studies, not only by me, but it is true, and it's difficult also to grow as an entrepreneur and become a businessman, because when you're starting out, you really do want to make the best product possible, and you want to make, or provide the best services possible. As you grow, you will have more interest, you will have investors that will have other interests at hand, and it is difficult to manage this new persona that, of course, is giving you money to grow, but it's also giving you another aspect to see, another, priorities as well. So there is a balance, and that's one of the trickiest things to find when you're an entrepreneur who has not been a CEO of a corporation before. Of course, if you have been a CEO, then I think it's more natural. It's second hand.
It never becomes natural. The other thing is, I like the platform's name, but in 2015 you might have been speaking your company name or the product name almost like Charlie Brown characters would hear adults' names. It would be blah 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 blah, right? Wah wah wah. Because in 2015, artificial intelligence in medical epidemiology. Epidemiology was not a mainstream word. Artificial intelligence was not a mainstream word in 2015. So it was like the wah 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 product name. How hard was it to communicate what you even were thinking about doing back then? I mean, you had some great practice. I mean, Singularity and the model that you went through is an incredible accelerator. It's a great incubator. They do great work out of there. So you had a really great test ground. However, the real world is a little bit different.
And it's more different when you are not, pitching to countries that, are the States or Canada, but when you're pitching to Malaysia or Singapore or Latin American countries, which, are still, I mean, at that point in time, were a few years behind on what I was.
And their value to medical epidemiology. I mean, this is a big subject,
It
right?
is. And it was difficult. Like most of my job was educating at the time. I
Right.
like the other day I was giving a talk, and I would say I actually thank OpenAI and ChatGPT because it is now way easier for me to talk about AI. At least there is some intentional use of AI. Like before, we had this use of AI in which we did not know we were using AI. So in 2015, we did have Google Maps, and Google Maps had AI for quite a long time now, but we didn't know we were using it because it was not an interface in which you could talk to one. But anyways, most of my job was actually educating this government senior leadership that I was talking to. So I would sit down with ministers, with presidents, with prime ministers. I was very young at the time. I think I was discriminated a few times, but that's okay. That's something that you learn how to navigate through. But I had to explain that this AI is not a terminator because a lot of the people that I sat down with, their only experience with AI was through movies. And the most famous movie about AI at that time was Terminator. Now we have a few more. But I actually, and this is no joke, I had to say, no, this isn't going to enjoy life.
This is not This is not
Yeah.
Skynet, right?
Exactly. This is actually going to make your life a lot easier because this, and that. And at the end of the day, I do have to, thank those initial people that believed in us, believed in me, and allowed us to pilot the technology at the first few cities where we went to. And of course, I had more no's than yeses, but it's part of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So like, look, the foundations of AI go back to the 70s,
Yeah.
and the very first emails, right? Because the AI was essential in hashing and then reconstructing emails as they went across the world. But you really moved. So the technical terminology and strategic circles for some of what you did was you went from a blue ocean environment to a very red ocean very quickly, right? I mean, it from 2015 in 10 years, well, really in 5 years, the world changed. And there was immense competitive pressure around AI, but also immense competitive pressure from billion-dollar players in medical epidemiology. And you played in the convergence of these two technologies. This became very from blue ocean to very red ocean very quickly. And so for people listening, when I say that, I mean blue ocean is imagine being out in the ocean all by yourself, nobody around. To red ocean is it's a very warlike idea, but the water turns very red with the blood of combatants within a marketplace. It becomes very tumultuous very quickly. So the strategies that work when you're trying to invite clients to come out into a blue ocean when there's nothing there are very different than a very competitive landscape that occurred over just 5 years. How did you manage that transition?
First of all, I have to be very honest and be very transparent and say that back in 2019, we also um, thought a lot about closing the business, closing the company. Because in 2019, we only had about 3 clients, which honestly was not enough for a startup and not what we envisioned. And mainly due to the things that you mentioned, and also like people were not understanding very well or were not keen enough to believe in the technology yet. And also because we deal in epidemiology, which is by its core, by its nature, preventive medicine. Okay, you do epidemiologic analysis to prevent disease from spreading and infecting more people. So prevention is always a leading factor in being more healthy, at least in communities, but is also the hardest thing to sell
Well, because
because
nobody's paying for
exactly, and nobody has to pay
our
in the
entire medical
yes,
system. Again, context, our entire medical system is based around paying for solutions
yes, it's
to
paying from
problems
care.
that exist, not
Yes,
for paying for avoiding problems that have not yet occurred. Now,
correct,
uh, we can have a very robust conversation about which is more valuable and which creates greater leverage, but that's just the system. So finding customers is hard because there's no one paying
correct,
for prevention.
correct. The clients that we did have at the time were the ones facing the biggest outbreaks of dengue at the time, which is a mosquito-borne disease, a disease that is transmitted by mosquitoes found in tropical climates, also Zika and chikungunya, which are very similar in the way that they are transmitted. And they had, hundreds of thousands of cases every year. So for them, did make a lot of sense. Okay, let's try it out because I don't know what else to try, and there are no vaccines for these things. But as I was saying, 2019, we again, or at least I and my co-founder made a choice, a decision of, let's keep working. Let's give it 2 to 3 more years and see what happens. And if nothing improves at the time, then we close shop. That was back in 2019. So in 2020, COVID happened at the end of well, at the beginning of it. And then everything changed for us. For the world, it changed for the worse. For the business itself, of AIME, of my company, it did change for the better. And we were one of those few winners of COVID because it gave us reason. So we were right, basically. We had to focus, and when I mean we, and this moment I mean governments, I mean the world, we have to focus on prevention and we have to focus on epidemiology. It now became mainstream to know about what epidemiology was. And it became mainstream to actually find certainty in decisions that only epidemiologists would give you. The issue was that there was too much data, too much noise, and it would be too troublesome for humans to work on that, especially on the time window that we had. And that was, when AI came in. And who better to work with AI than a company that had been working with it in the past, 4 years. So we did have before and after when COVID happened. We were about 5 employees by the end of 2019, and we were about 35 at the end of 2020. So we grew a lot because we had, gotten that, okay, yes, we need you. I don't know how we didn't need you before. Like, I don't know how we didn't hire you before. Um, but yeah, let's work together. And
But banging on those doors for 4 years,
yes,
right, helped
constantly,
open the doors in
definitely.
4 months. I mean, the world changed very quickly for you.
Yes.
But if you didn't do the 4 years, that 4 months wouldn't have existed, right?
That is correct. There was a path that was walked, and that we went through it. I remember also, like, there were two things that helped us really get those contacts in 2020. One is, as you mentioned, the work that we did in those years. I was key there because what I did in those years was, applying for grants, applying to competitions, applying to different things that would put our name on top of the web and on top of and at that time if you search AI and technology, we would be one of the first hits in Google. But also, of course, closing deals, which gives us experience and validation. And the second thing that helped us was thanks to my co-founder, who back in 2019, when in Wuhan were just releasing news about the virus, he said, let's work on this because I think this is going to change the way that epidemics are treated around the world. This was back in November, I believe.
So it was a
So
hunch. He just had this hunch.
he had a hunch, and what we did was work in a few dashboards very quickly, not the most complex dashboards at all. We have built more complex dashboards back in 2016, but with that dashboard, we were able to go to the government of Malaysia the day that the airports were closed, which I think they closed pretty much at the same week globally. I think uh, maybe one day closed the states, another day closed another country, but I think most countries closed at the same week. But the day it closed in Malaysia was a Thursday. I was there actually, And on Friday, we were already working with authorities because of the same day that they closed doors and they closed the airports, we were showing the dashboard to them. And that in itself gave them calm. There was a lot of uncertainty at the time. These were I'm talking about decision makers, who have the responsibility to make decisions that would impact millions of people, and they didn't know what to do. And this gave them, okay, at least now we have a north. At least now we can have some metrics that could actually be updated every day, every hour, and see what's going on and base our decisions on that. So yes, we need this. And yeah, the rest is history. That's how we, built and kept building different solutions that were mainly impacted Malaysia in 2020 and still impact today.
That's really interesting. I love how you followed your hunch and made a dashboard, and it sounds so. We have this philosophy or this thing that I like to talk about. It's called "Make It Bad, Make It Better," and you really embrace that. You made a dashboard, you got it out quickly, but you made it highly valuable to the audience, and you knew what was going to be valuable to your customer because you've been trying it, you've been validating it for 4 years, right?
Correct.
So it wasn't just a shot. It wasn't your V1. It was your V1 of that one, but it wasn't your V1 overall. You were
Correct.
coming to it with some value.
And you do learn a few things along the way. You learn that people that make decisions like the dashboard this way or not this way, that like this filter here or that they like this graph here rather than this one, that they use it, sometimes for political purposes, but that's okay because at the end of the day, you're trying to make it as valuable as possible so you can continue impacting the lives of people and you can continue having business to live out of it as well. But yes, and I 100% agree with you. There was a road that we walked and that had to be walked in order to get there as fast as we did.
That's fantastic. The other thing I want to go back to, so I know I'm going back to your introduction a little bit, and I want to talk about how you had a chance to make one choice to follow this, and follow this. I mean, you presented this AI model in 2015 at Singularity University at Ames Research Park, right? You did this, and after 10 weeks, you won, and you went to all of the people around you, people who care about you, people who know you, your mentors and friends and family, and said, do I follow this opportunity or go back to the DR? And when you asked around, everyone said, play it safe, go home. And isn't it interesting that when things get uncertain, smart leaders, smart people, good people tend to pump the brakes, and pumping the brakes isn't really pumping the brakes. It's retreating to something that is safe as opposed to moving forward a little bit. You decided to go forward anyway. Let's talk about the decision. What factored in that decision?
I know that back home, in 2015, back home, I had a consultancy company, IT consultancy company that I had built. It was 3 years old. So I graduated with it already being established. So I did create my first company, again, an IT consulting company, about 3 months before I graduated from college. And I already had clients. I remember that the first year I closed, I myself, about 23 different clients, which is, I think, a lot. And honestly, I was making money. I was okay, but I was getting tired of it. I was getting tired of the culture. I was getting tired of, what I mean culture is how the market in the DR responded to technology. It is not the same as how the States or other countries respond to technology, in which in the DR is seen as something that is nice to have, while in the States and that you must have, for example. And I knew that even though my talent and my clients were, appreciating my work, that I had little room for innovation there. I think that was the major driver for me. And it actually takes me back to my first ever job in tech. I quit that job because I was doing work that was not innovative at all. I was just following, you know, um, I was programming things that were built 10 years ago and they had to be kept being built that way. So I was unhappy with it. At the end of the day, I am at my happiest when I take an idea and put it into reality with the belief that it will change or improve people's lives. It doesn't have to be an impact technology. It doesn't have to be healthcare or poverty. It could be also for financial gain. That's okay, but it has to be an innovation. It has to be something that has not been done before, at least for a specific industry or at least for a specific market. And if I'm being very, very honest and being transparent, I think that's the main reason why I didn't, follow what my family, friends, mentors, as you said, suggested of me. I was not seeing myself happy in the VR because I was not seeing myself innovating in the VR, at least not at that time.
Yeah, and it's not surprising to hear that innovation is so important to you. Like I said, when you launched a platform called Artificial Intelligence in Medical Epidemiology in 2015, and again the Charlie Brown character wah 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 comes into my mind because that's what most people would have heard back then. Uh, Innovation is in your blood, and following that must have been a very important part to everything. So look back at this, and one of the things that I think is really interesting that that I don't know that I heard um, one real big answer to. So I'm going to push back against it. Was what did you do with the intense competitive pressure that came in? Because there were a lot of other companies that built together with duct tape solutions around AI and medical epidemiology in and around the early mid stage of 2020 to build a solution that was like yours, but yours already was there. How did you differentiate between those two, especially in a world where, look, we can say that there's no market around it, but you're still selling to the medical profession, more or less, or to governments. And governments, as it relates to health, are enormously pedantic. They are very slow moving and tend to bet on big players over small. You sort of conquer two big roadblocks at the same time. How did you do that?
That's the thing. The answer is not as sexy as I would put it, but you already answered is that it takes a lot of time. Like for us to close a deal with the government is easy, 14 months, just having meetings and talks and Zooms and Teams and whatnot. And this is something that most people are not willing to spend for a government contract that could change in 6 months because the president changed or the prime minister changed. Right now we have grown and we now know how to make deals better. So if a government changes, we are still intact. But even at that time, where everyone wanted something using AI or using any technology that was out there just to help them, I did see a lot of new players, but none of them remain today. Maybe one or two, which are American and have all the money in the world. But still in Southeast Asia, we are not seeing that much competition. What we are seeing now is competition using like LLMs to build chatbots and whatnot. Even ourselves have built some chatbots that help uh, our clients digest the data in a faster way. But what we're seeing now is just tools that use OpenAI's or some other models capabilities to come up with a chatbot that does X or does Y. And I'm not saying that there is no benefit of using them, that there is no merit. Of course, there is merit. But what we do is way beyond that. What we do is we truly analyze. We are a team of medical doctors and data scientists and technologists that truly understand the disease and truly understand what technology can do. And with that, we build technologies that are in par with the necessities that our clients need. Of course, we have built models that predict disease, but we also have built models that profile people. With their consent, of course, to tell them whether or not they're a candidate for a cancer or diabetes screening because they're at risk or not.
Mm.
And these things, you only get to them through analyzing the problem in a very deep sense and to having access. So I think these are building blocks. And when I mean having access is, keeping with the fight. You have to be there and you have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And when you hear a problem that someone tells you, you have to, okay, let's go that way. At the end of the day, as I mentioned at the beginning, I see businessmen as people that are able to help others through their craft. And there are no, I would say, better words for a businessman to hear than I have this problem. If your
Absolutely.
client tells you this, then you have a way to make them happy. Of course, with your capabilities align. But if you hear those words, then you're gonna make bank or at least make an impact.
What is good enough when it comes to being able to predict these things? I think perfection is the enemy of done. Everybody wants 100% efficacy. What did you find? What level of completeness was appropriate for your use cases in your mind?
For the cases that we have now, we aim always to have more than 85% of accuracy. So out of 100 objects we predict, at least 85 must be mathematically correct, at least. And we reduce it a bit when we are in the field. So when you're in the field, when you put it to test with real people's lives and real tests, which is very hard to do because the way that you test these models out in the real world is that you deploy them and you do nothing. You just see.
You
So
wait.
yeah, you wait. For field ones, we are okay with more than 82%. So we have to have 85 and 82. That's what we recommend.
And that's pretty tough to do. I mean, I think that's the bottom line, that it's tough to do. Rainier, I know we could talk for a long time, and I find how you've built AIME and your companies and your vision and your strategy and your tenacity really admirable. And I know we could go for a long time, but our time has come. This season, we've been ending every episode with a shout out to our an early Paper Napkin Wisdom contributor. His name was John Rulin. He wrote a profound book called Giftology, but a few years before that, he appeared on Paper Napkin Wisdom and shared a simple napkin with us: is what you appreciate appreciates. And his message was that when you appreciate someone or something and you do so publicly, it appreciates in value to you and to everyone around them. So we're paying forward his appreciation and asking every guest to shout out somebody and lay some appreciation and love out there in the world. Who would you like to appreciate today?
Those words are very noble, and I think they hold value by themselves. But I think my mom. So quickly, my dad died when I was 4 years old. So my mom was my dad and my mom for me. She raised me, and I am the person who I am today because of her. And I love her, but I love also that I can count on her and her support. And she always told me, like, if you ever need help, you can come back. So I really appreciate that. Even after all of these years, I'm still someone that she believes in, but that also believes in that she needs to take care of me, which is a very mom thing to do. So I think I'm gonna be very normal here and just say my mom, who I love.
I think that's amazing. Thank you, Rainier.
Thank you.
Rainier, thank you for reminding us that history can pivot on one courageous yes. Your journey from a classroom concept to life-saving AI is proof that simple ideas, when decisively acted upon, shape a better world. Key takeaways include: decide, then design. One clear commitment activates resources and allies you don't see yet. Prototype in reality. Field testing turns theory into trusted impact. Translate complexity into clarity. Insight is only power when people know what to do next. Purpose anchors every pivot. Markets shift. A meaningful problem endures. Own the outcome together. Bold visions accelerate inside accountable communities. As you reflect now, you might notice fresh possibilities opening the moment you write down that simple and single decision you've been delaying. Subscribe and review the show. Every rating helps amplify voices like Rainier's. Share this episode with someone wrestling with a pivotal choice, and grab a napkin, jot down one decision, and snap a pic and tag #PaperNapkinWisdom. What's the seemingly small decision that, once made, could ripple across your life or business? Write it, share it, and let the community cheer you forward. Remember, big results start small, often with ink on a humble napkin. Until next time, keep turning bold thoughts into intentional action and watch the extraordinary unfold. Make it a great day.